SOLIDFPS here, and in this video I'll be going over my updated endgame bunny builds in the first Descendant. If you followed my previous bunny build video, I'm sure you'll appreciate the fact that the builds in this video use the same set of catalysts, so you won't need to change anything except the mods. For those of you that are newer to this game, a bunny with the THUNDERCAGE SMG is the backbone of a fresh account since you unlock them so early, and they can help you earn everything else in the game much more efficiently. At the time of this video, I'm over 400 hours deep, and I still use her to farm almost everything I need. There are a few main speed farming build variations I'll be covering here with a few different Transcendent mods. If you only have regular bunny, you won't be able to use the high voltage version since it's exclusive to Ultimate Bunny. Until the developers give us a better way to swap mod slot polarities, I will only ever recommend building bunny as an efficient AoE speed farmer and not for single target boss damage. There are plenty of better characters to build up exclusively for bossing that you'll end up grinding for and building later in your first Descendant career, like Lepic and Glay, so focusing on building bunny for speed farming is the most effective use of your time and resources. With that said, let's get into it. The first thing about bunny is that we only care about abilities 2 and 3. Bunny runs fast with ability 2. Bunny kills everything around her with ability 3. Moving on to our Descendant mod page, we have a few goals to accomplish when building bunny. You need enough cooldown reduction and or skill duration to make sure ability 3 has 100% uptime. You need a combination of different skill power related stats and mods to scale the damage up. You need a bonus of 200% skill range to hit the range cap and make sure the skill hits enemies as far away from you as possible. You need a way to make ability 2 last as long as possible so we can keep running at max speed. You need enough HP and defense to make sure you're able to take a few hits in most content. Remember, every mod you're about to see can be looked up and tracked in the Access Info tab if you haven't seen them before and need to know where they can be farmed. With those build goals in mind, let's build Bionic Fuel Bunny from the ground up. Starting with the sub-module slot, you can use whatever you prefer as long as you upgrade it for plus 10 capacity. These days, I use long distance maneuvering for the extra grapple distance so it's easier to climb the environment. MP conversion by itself gives more than enough cooldown reduction to make ability 3 have 100% uptime. It drops the cooldown time below the duration time. To max out our range, we need maximize range, skill expansion, and range rolled on our reactor. This maxes out ability 3's range to 21 meters, giving us a huge circle. For more damage, we're going to use Electric Specialist and Technician. Now I know this combination gives slightly less damage than if I use a different skill power modifier mod, but Bunny's ability 3 already has plenty of skill power modifier when it's used at maximum electricity, so a different mod would be a minimal damage increase. The reason I'm using Technician is because of the catalyst and having the freedom to switch to the high voltage build, which we'll see later in this video. Anyways, with just those mods, we have met all our goals for ability 3. Damage, range, uptime, done. For survivability, I always stack HP and try to slot in a defense mod if there's room. Between increased HP and stim accelerant, you should have a ton of HP that can be patched up easily in combat when you kill mobs and pick up red HP cubes. Spear and Shield is a nice defensive mod that also gives us more damage. The skill power from this mod is stronger than the skill power modifier from Iron Defense in this build. Don't rank this up all the way since there won't be enough room for everything if you do. Bionic Fuel gives us unlimited sprint with ability 2. Instead of using MP to sprint, Bionic Fuel drains our HP instead. This will get us low but never kill us. The only downside is now our sprint is only a 30% sprint speed increase instead of the original 50%. And with Bionic Fuel draining our HP constantly, you might be wondering why I stack HP instead of shields. And that's because HP scales higher than shields, HP can replenish easily in combat from red cubes, and I know how to toggle Bionic Fuel off when I'm fighting a dungeon boss. If you wanted to take this build and make your own shield stacking Bionic Fuel build with shield mods and shield collector, you could. But then you lose the flexibility to switch builds because of the mod polarities being different. Another perk of running Bionic Fuel is that you can get value out of Walk a Tightrope mod. Bionic Fuel gets us below 50% HP and Tightrope gives us more gun and skill damage. The extra gun damage helps out on bosses since our third ability is tuned for AoE damage, not single target damage. Finally, the last benefit of stacking HP is that we can run HP Collector. This won't offset the constant drain of Bionic Fuel, but this will give us quality of life in those moments where we need to toggle Bionic Fuel off. Until they bring in new mods or improve the flexibility of the mod system in this game, this is my final Bionic Fuel build. With Bionic Fuel out of the way, let's move on to the High Voltage build. High Voltage is Ultimate Bunny exclusive and completely changes ability 3 so that it does more damage, has higher base range, and a shorter base cooldown. The problem with it is that it can only hit 3 enemies at a time, which makes it worse at AoE when fighting big packs, but generally stronger for fighting small packs. To max out our range, we need maximize range, skill expansion, and range rolled on our reactor. This maxes out ability 3's range to 27 meters. For more damage, we're going to use focus on electric, and focus on singular. Now the reason I use both of these for damage is they also give enough cooldown reduction to give us a 100% uptime. With all of these mods, we have met our goals for ability 3. Damage, range, uptime, done. Now since this is a high voltage build, we don't have the luxury of infinite sprint like we do with bionic fuel. To make our sprint last as long as possible, we need as much MP and skill cost reduction as we can get. With maximized conservation, strong mentality, and skill costs rolled on a reactor, we can get at least 50% cost reduction. That reduces how much MP we burn for every second that we sprint with ability 2. With MP Collector, any blue MP cubes we pick up in combat, and the MP related rolls in our component set that you'll see later in this video, that should be more than enough to sustain our sprint for a long period of time. Then we'll just get our HP up with HP amplification and increased HP. And finally, we'll top off our damage with Dangerous Ambush. Because of our range, this mod should kick in pretty frequently during combat, even more if you play in a group. This build is exclusive to Ultimate Bunny and way more gear demanding than Bionic Fuel if you want the luxury of sprinting at max speed for as long as possible. Unless something changes in the future, this is my final high voltage build. With Bionic Fuel and high voltage out of the way, there's one last build to cover. What if you've been playing for a while, you have enough MP components, and you like the big bunny circle but don't like the movement speed penalty and constant HP drain of Bionic Fuel? We can take a combination of the range, cooldown, skill power, and skill cost reduction mods that we used in the other builds to make this build. With all of these mods, we have met all our goals for ability 3 once again. Damage, range, uptime, done. And managed to fit in as much cost reduction as we can to make ability 2 last a long time. The only downside here is now we only have room for 1 HP mod, so it might feel a little uncomfortable compared to the other builds in this video. One of the upsides is that we can also slot in Superconductor to debuff enemies by 20% of their attack, which will help with survivability against anything tanky enough to survive a few hits. But that means we have to drop a rank of Strong Mentality and lose a little bit of cost reduction to fit the Transcendent mod in. This build is more gear demanding than Bionic Fuel if you want the luxury of sprinting at max speed for as long as possible. Once again, unless something changes in the future, this is my final Superconductor build. All the builds in this video use the same reactor. You want a THUNDERCAGE mounting reactor with electric and singular. You always want a range roll on it to make sure Bunny's AoE is maxed, and then the other stat is up to you. I get cost reduction so that the builds relying on MP can run a little longer. All the builds in this video also use the same Slayer component set. Everything that has MP on it does not matter for Bionic Fuel, but matters an incredible amount for the other builds. When I was saying that the non-Bionic Fuel builds are more gear dependent, this is what I meant. The first 3 pieces of Slayer all need MP related rolls to keep Bunny going for as long as possible. And while this set increases our skill cost, that's okay because the skill power bonus from it is so strong and usable on a bunch of other skill damage descendants too. Finally, our gun which is mostly used to meet our reactor condition is the THUNDERCAGE. This loadout is for people who want to maximize the per bullet damage of the THUNDERCAGE when hitting nothing but headshots and weak points. I'm not going to go into too much depth with the gun here as I've covered it with numbers and spreadsheets in previous videos. Gun builds end up being pretty one-dimensional once you understand the game's damage formula and have looked at the base stats of the gun you're building. The only mandatory mods in this thing are the ones that increase attack, crit rate, crit damage, and fire rate. That leaves you with 3 slots you can change for quality of life or preference like mag size increase, elemental damage, or your favorite gold mod. I use this gun on other characters and I'm always aiming for heads and weak points, so this gun build is locked in and not changing. Now for the build you really came here for. After all, fashion is the true endgame, right? Here are the paints I used on the Apex Predator skin. The devs knew what they were doing when they added leather matte brown as an option. Now with these bunny builds, you might be wondering when it's best to use each one and why. Well, if you look at them side by side, it's pretty obvious that if you're running content with high mob density, that the bunny ring is way better than high voltage since it can hit everything all the time. So that pretty much means void fragments and special operations. But when it comes down to mission speedruns and boss fights, high voltage should come out on top. Less mob density means we need more single target damage, and the rest comes down to execution, like how quickly we're running between rooms, completing objectives, and hitting your shots on the final boss. Anyways, you get the idea, so that's pretty much it for the build video for both my Ultimate Bunny and my THUNDERCAGE. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it useful, and if you did, like and subscribe for future content or swing by the Twitch stream when I'm live. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.